Giacomo Baldini joins me now to talk about the humanitarian situation in Lebanon. He is the country director at Relief International. Giacomo, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. As of now, how many civilians have already been displaced from their homes in southern Lebanon?
Thank you, Biana, for having me. Well, the situation is extremely alarming. I mean, in the past 48 hours, we have seen an escalation with no precedents. The latest numbers, the latest figures that we received is that 100,000 people have been displaced in the past 2 days. We have to add them to the 110,000 people that have been displaced in the past year, more or less. It's important to notice that 40,000 of these 100,000 that I just mentioned are displaced in collective centers. And these are obviously the most vulnerable, so the ones that do not have the means to pay rent or do not have relatives where to find shelter to.
Can we go back to what you just noted, because that was important? This isn't just civilians having to relocate in the last several days or weeks. This has been going on for nearly a year after Hezbollah began launching rockets into Israel on October 8th. Give us a sense of what even the past year has been like for civilians, perhaps on a lower scale, though.
Well, yes, I mean, it has been a little bit more diluted over time, we can say, but definitely in the past 48 hours. Also, the reception capacity that other areas in Lebanon, safer areas ahead, has been really put at strain. We are speaking about entire households with children, with older people, with people with disabilities, people with specific needs. It's an extremely difficult situation at the moment.
And where are civilians going? Where are their shelters?
At the moment, yeah, I mean, they are fleeing mainly from the south and Bekaa. Let's try to put 1 second ourselves in their perspective. I mean, they are in clogged highways with airstrikes happening around them. I mean, I received reports from my local staff of cars being bombed a few meters away from the one of their parents. So, I mean, the situation of psychological distress, it's huge. They are trying to move towards north, Mount Lebanon, Beirut, obviously not the areas currently affected by the hostilities in Beirut. Basically, they're trying to move north, but the displacement is also the influx of the people is extremely complex at the moment.
And give us a sense of where things stand in terms of resources, basic resources, water, food, medicine. What is needed most right now?
Well, consider that Lebanon institutions from the crisis of 2019-2020 have already been extremely weakened. So governmental capacity to respond is very limited, and it relies a lot on the international community. So at the moment, INGOs, local NGOs, so non-governmental organizations, together with the United Nations, in coordination with the government, with the municipalities, I mean, with local institutions, are trying to do their best. Most of them are reprogramming in the sense that are diverting resources from current programs to invest into the emergency response. But obviously, we have a situation in which current programs are still essential. So we badly need resources to respond to this emergency that at the moment is at the onset, but now we don't know, I mean, how unpredictable this in what unpredictable way this may evolve.
Yeah,
no, I mean, just to conclude, I mean, obviously there are huge needs of basic supplies, non-food items like mattresses, pillows, hygiene items like soap, shampoos. I mean, let's try to imagine entire households that are being hosted in schools where there is nothing. And obviously there are medical needs to be covered, acute morbidities, basic medicines to be distributed. So I would say that, I mean, the need is at large scale, and the assessments are being conducted, but in an extremely fluid and evolving environment. Today, for instance, we have detected also some airstrikes in Saida, so outside of the traditional areas where the hostilities have been seen in the past months, and that make assessing these collective shelters also very difficult. But the gaps are huge.
Given the scale of what you need, the number of civilians that continues to grow by the day that are fleeing, that need these resources, I know that you're working with the Ministry of Health there in Lebanon, but just for perspective, without the help of international communities, international countries, international aid agencies, will the civilians there be able to receive the care they need?
No, absolutely not. I mean, Relief International, together with the rest of the NGO and the UN community, provides a huge contribution, and obviously in coordination with the government, with whom we have been working in the past years. But the role of the international community, it's crucial, and obviously also the role of international donors that have to pour resources instantly to cover the huge needs that are emerging.
As we mentioned, you had the Israeli chief of staff, the top general there, say that they are preparing, perhaps, for a possible incursion. Many there in Lebanon recall the last major war between Israel and Hezbollah in 2006, which lasted 34 days. Give us a sense of what you're hearing from civilians there on the ground as they brace for perhaps, God forbid, another major land war.
Well, Bianna, I am a humanitarian and not a political analyst, so I will not make forecasts. But obviously, I mean, we are monitoring the situation.
Aside, yes, but and many of them have lived through the past war. How fearful are they of another one?
There is a situation of a huge psychological distress. I mean, it has been a country that has been more or less stable for 18 years, especially the children have never been exposed to this, and the elders know what that means. Let's consider that in slightly more than a day, already 600 people have been killed, and many of these are civilians, including 50 children and almost 100. The psychological distress of the community is huge. And for this reason, also in terms of humanitarian response, whatever we can do in terms of mental health and psychosocial support really need to be invested.
Well, you're speaking to an international audience right now. You have world leaders gathering here in New York for the UN General Assembly. What is your message to them?
Well, my message is twofold. On the one hand, I mean, we desperately need financial resources to provide the basic needs to the population, and we call for an immediate de-escalation, cessation of hostilities, protection of civilians, and obviously safe humanitarian access to the areas that are affected by the conflict.
Giacomo Baldini, thank you so much for joining us, and please stay safe.